Alright, what is up guys, it's Zero here, and today we are here to take a look at our monthly end of month tier list, this time for G-Set 14, featuring support for Kagero, Link Joker, Aquaforce, Gold Paladin, and Angel Feather. So this month I think quite a bit actually changed. I think the meta got shaken up quite a bit with this set, quite a bit of basically every clan in this set that got support got something out of it, and I think every clan from that set got a huge boost in terms of their viability. So today we're here to take a look at everything there. So yeah, so same tiers as before, but I think this time actually we'll change some things up. I think has issues isn't really the best way to describe like this, like bottom, like the lower end of tier 2. So I think I'll change this to like strong or something like that. So, and then this will be playable. So they essentially mean the same thing, but oops, if I can spell. It essentially means the same thing, except I just changed the labels a bit. So yeah, we'll start from the bottom up. So in terms of playable decks, I think this deck goes here, this deck goes here. This deck goes there. And this, oh, not you. I think you probably go there, and you go there, and you probably go here too. So in no particular order, I'm not gonna bother ordering this last tier. I'll just quickly go over all these decks. So Blade Master is down here purely because there's a better Kagero deck now. There's a deck, Mr. Overlord right here. There is just no reason to play Blade Master at all whatsoever over Overlord, and that, in my opinion, is reason enough to bump Blade Master down all the way here. There's a strictly better Kagero deck that basically does everything Blade Master does, but better, so I don't really see a reason at all to be playing Blade Master at the moment. So that's why I think I'll move all the way down here. The deck itself that has no particular issues or anything, it just isn't as good as the other deck, so yeah. Prisms, I think the Prisms are finally seeing their age. This deck, in my opinion, has always been like around the tier 2 area, but it was one of the original like super strong Unga Bunga combo decks that had like a really strong kill turn. But I think a bunch of other decks have caught up with the deck, and as such, I think this deck is gonna fall lower and lower eventually. It'll be bumped off the list. So yeah, so that's our Prisms are here. And as for decks that I've actually taken off from last month, I took off DI and I took off Asha. Asha will probably make a return next month with their new support, but I think both those decks just don't do anything of relevance at all whatsoever. So I don't see a reason to keep them on the list at all. But if they were here, they'd be in this bottom end of tier 2. But I think they're worse than these decks, so that's why they're not here. Vanquisher. Vanquisher, it's just, again, it's worse Kagero, and then I actually think the quote-unquote nerf to Descendant actually made a difference to the deck. I think the draw 2 actually really helped, because it actually like got you advantage late into the game, where like you could like do all your kill, you could like do your like kill turn while and then just try to draw more stuff. So I think the nerf to that actually does make a difference. Night Rose, it is just worse than other combo decks. Don't really steer them put it any higher. There probably is an argument to put it up here if you really wanted to, but I personally just don't see the deck as being that good, and I just don't see the deck at all that often. So yeah. Jet, same thing. I think Jet was really good last month, I think, but I think with the current meta right now, I think all those decks kind of tell Jet to go sit in the corner. So yeah, Jet once again is getting more support next month, so I expect it to go up next month. But for now, I think Jet actually is worse than a bunch of these other decks. And a deck that I actually missed is Blasters. So we'll go over Blasters next. Blasters are Blasters. I don't think Blasters are particularly that good. In my opinion, I don't think they do enough, and that's me. I think it's down here. It's like a perfectly playable deck, as with all these decks in this tier. But I think Blasters just they're lacking that oomph that all these other decks above it last. They have a pretty solid early game, but like their late game, their actual ability to end the game is kind of really mediocre in my opinion. And finally, Chaos, I will leave into this bottom end of tier 2. Chaos did get support, and if you look at the deck in a vacuum, the deck is really good. The stuff that Chaos got is actually really strong. They have an actual finisher now with Stark. They're Xerath Dragon. Crisis is a really good new ride. Deluge is good situationally. Not the best in my opinion, but it's still a solid card. And then a bunch of the other main deck stuff we got is also pretty solid. But I think my main issue with Chaos is that Chaos doesn't play well at all into any of the tier 1 decks, minus to one of them, which I'll go over once actually place everything in the top tiers. But yeah, I think Chaos just doesn't play well into any of the actual good decks, and as such, I think it loses its like rogue potential to do well against the meta. It just kind of dies to everything, all the actual good decks, and as such, I think Chaos I'll bump Chaos down a bit. But I guess if you wanted me to order all of this, I think Night Rose is probably by far the best deck out of this bunch, followed by yes, probably something like this if I really had to order it. Very loosely ordered. I think Night Rose is by far best deck out of this batch. I think Night Rose is the only deck I consider moving up, and everything else I think is around the same power level. And next, on to the tier 2 for Rogue. I actually don't have anything here. I think the two decks that are here before, you see Chaos is in tier 2, is in the lower end, and the other one that was here before, I will put in the higher end. So Gurgut actually didn't actually get a whole lot of cards. They got basically 2 cards for the deck. They got the grade 2, I think his name is Salionis, and the Gurgut Helios. Both cards are quite good. I think both cards offer quite a bit to the deck. Salionis gives you plays going first because his ability to go into Soul and give your Vanguard extra power is not GB locked, meaning if you open him, you can make your Van really big even going first. Gurgut Helios does something for the deck that no other Shrine in the G-Zone does, being a straight up +1 as it draws you a card. If you just G-Flip to get the Wrath +1 and draw one, so that's pretty good there. And I think what Gurgut does is just really good for the current against a lot of the good decks right now. Being on like a 26k, 31k Vanguard, even the really good decks that scale really big can't exactly scale that well into like a 31k base Vanguard, and as such, I think Gurgut is actually a very strong deck. Gets sticked on by some really random things, but I think Gurgut is actually a very strong deck. I was gonna cover this deck, but I caught a little sick for like a few days, so kind of just didn't have the energy to do that. But yeah, maybe we'll cover that after like in a few days or something like that. But Gurgut, I think, is a very strong deck. Wouldn't put in tier 1. I think this deck still is lacking some issues. The deck is still deck out turbo a lot of times, but what the deck is doing, I think, is strong enough to put it into like the higher end of tier 2. And then next up we have go over some older stuff first. Clara and Luor, I think I'll bump both of them down a bit. Again, I just don't think they play too favorably into the current meta, so as such, I'll put both of them in here. Both of these are like the damage choke, 0 damage, blah 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 variation of the deck. Does well against some things, doesn't do so well against some other things, so yeah. They'll go into the higher end tier 2. I still think the decks are pretty strong, but they just don't feel like as good to play as they did last month. I think that's the better way to put it. I don't think they got any worse, I just think they just don't feel as well to play. Probably because Destiny or Overlord is one of the most popular decks, and these two decks don't exactly like playing into like super heavy control decks, so that's why I'll lower them down to like the higher end tier 2 for now. And as for some newer stuff, I think the only deck that I'll put here will be Messiah. I think Messiah is probably better than these decks in my opinion at the very least. So yeah, Messiah, they got a bunch of stuff this set, and all the stuff they got was really good, so the deck is finally really good now. Yeah, soft locking is still pretty strong in 0 because it still like stunts their ability to actually like progress their board state. They're stuck with what's there. Deck got actual ways to plus now. The deck has actual ways to push. They have actual ways to end the game. Their G-Zone is a great utility box. They have a bunch of stuff in there that's really good. Main deck got a bunch of new cards. The main buff the deck got is the Alter Ego Neo Messiah, being just a very strong ride now. Draws you a bunch of cards, and yeah, the deck just has like the deck is just a very all-around solid good deck. Draws you a bunch of cards. Has a pretty strong pushing power. Has really strong kill power. I think the only issue the deck is still rather pace reliant in my opinion. I think the deck still needs to draw into its pieces to actually do its thing. I think sometimes you just end up missing like one piece. Your kill turn is a lot worse than it could be. So yeah, that's personally why I'll not put it into any higher than upper end of tier 2. But I think Messiah is a very strong deck now. And finally, we will take a look at the tier 1 deck. So if you see here, all these decks are tier 1. And before I even place anything, I did say go back to Chaos with this regard. If you look at all of these decks, I think Chaos loses, in my opinion, to every single deck here except for Altmile. I think Chaos does beat Altmile pretty handily. I think that is a matchup that Chaos is favored in, especially now with all the new support. But if you look at all these decks, every single one of these decks has ways to deal with Chaos. Fenrir can just sandbag with stuff like Dream Dragon to clear out the front row while still like slowly pushing for damage, setting up their pieces, drawing their cards and all that. So Fenrir is ways to deal with it. Shiranui, if you lock their stuff, they don't care. They'll just start swinging at you with your own units. So there's that. Hari clears their own board. Aqua Force is a bunch of resist now, so I don't know what you were doing against this deck with Chaos. Destiny has the ability to clear their own lock circles, and Chaos itself is a deck out turbo deck because the deck goes through its deck very fast, and that's what zero damage Gav wants you to do. They want you to turbo through your deck really fast. And Gav doesn't swing at your face anyway, so they don't really care if they get to. They don't care if they have 2 lock circles. They'll just swing rear, call it a day. So because of that, I think every deck here but Altmile just kind of has some way to dick on Chaos, and as such, that's why Chaos is down here. So yeah. But as for the tier 1, I think the lower end tier 1, with this, and this, and obviously because of that, these 2 decks go here. So let's just quickly order the bottom end of tier 1 first. I think probably something like this, I think. So yeah, Altmile is still a good deck. Don't get me wrong, I think Altmile is still quite the strong deck, but I think it's finally starting to show its age a little bit. I think all the other combo decks, Shiranui, Thalas, and Hari are all just better at doing what Altmile does. And as such, that's why I think Altmile is in the lower end tier 1. I think the deck is still very strong, but the deck also does run into issues of not drawing its guards. And yeah, so I think it's still a strong deck, but I think it's finally starting to show its age a little bit with these other decks just power creeping it. It's just power creeping Altmiles and just being like better. It's basically these decks are doing what Altmile did to decks before, where these other decks weren't as good as Altmile. As such, they were lower end on the tier list. And such, these decks are basically the new Altmile, not Altmile are the other decks. So yeah, just the natural state of any game, power creep is inevitable, and as such, Altmile belongs here. Fenrir is just being a dick and doing its own thing. It just kind of does its own thing, whether it be 0 damage Fenrir, or you try to kill them from 0 with Medusa, or you're doing like the regular OTK with like the Gajoles and the big scaler. So yeah, not much to say. Fenrir is Fenrir. Fenrir does its own things. It can run into some rough matchups. I think both the Shadow Paladin decks are annoying for Fenrir. I'd imagine Gav would be annoying too, because Gav will damage choke you, meaning you eventually would deck out, and you don't have like the most comfortable amount of CB to deal with Gav, and Gav also having 5 fields in deck is quite annoying for you. So yeah, I'd imagine those decks are kind of annoying. Purge, I think, can actually be pretty annoying too, because Purge, if Purge goes second, they'll just like, and they put you to 3, they'll just like pain you, and you still need 2 guards to survive. You get your heal guard, but you have to draw one of your other 4 PGs to survive the Purge going first. But yeah, overall, I think yeah, Fenrir is just Fenrir. Fenrir does its own thing. Not really anything too much to say about it. And finally, we are talking about one of the newer decks, Gav. This is specifically 0 damage Gavrael. I think this deck is actually, like I said in my the actual video about this deck, I think this deck has some like very like polarizing matchups. I think this deck does really poorly against the 2 Shadow Paladin decks here, but I think Gav and Overlord, because Overlord is a very strong control deck. I think also kind of loses the Vanquisher, like I said in my actual video, but yeah, I think Gav does overall pretty well. You see here these top few decks. I think once Gav stabilizes, these 3 decks actually just kind of fold to Gav in my opinion. Because once you start healing down, you stay at 3. There's limits to how many turns they have that can kill you before they deck themselves out. And yeah, I think Gav's pretty strong for those reasons. But again, some rather polarizing matchups, and obviously games with this deck take forever. So not the best ladder deck per se, but I think for tournament play, it is a deck that I definitely at least consider, because I think just telling some of these decks to eat shit and not be able to play the game and deck themselves out is pretty good. So yeah, I think as such, Gav goes here. Next up, we have Overlord. This was the deck of the month. This was like the deck you saw on ladder, basically like a good like 6-7, like I think like solid like 6 out of 10 games, especially the first half of the month where everyone was poor and they just wanted to play something new. Overlord was very, very common. It was definitely the most common deck of the ladder of the month. And yeah, it's just a solid deck. Not a whole lot to say about it. It does solid things. It retires. The Purge is a very strong strike as it pings you. Destiny is a very strong card because it does a lot of things by itself. And yeah, not a whole lot to say about Overlord. Overlord is a solid deck. And then finally we have Shiranui. Shiranui last month was all the way up here, but I decided to bump the deck down a little bit because I think Thabas just kind of is a better deck than Shiranui. Shiranui is still a deck that will absolutely ransack you going second. The deck is still a very, very strong go second deck. But I think these other decks just kind of do what Shiranui does, but better. Shiranui does have that one fatal flaw in my opinion that if you push them to 5 and they heal back down to 4, your Mugen Lord turn is much, much worse than what it could be. And these other two decks here don't have that same issue where and then when it heals down to 4, you just straight up lose out on your kill turn, and you have the sandbag into something else. So yeah, I think because I think that one big issue is that if they heal down, Mugen Lord is a lot worse than what these decks would be doing when you're at 4 as well. Because with Hari and Thabas, even if you hit on the 4, they will still go into their kill stride and they'll still try to kill you without any issue because their scaling is a lot better. But with Mugen Lord, you lose out on I think you let you lose out on like every single check because you get like one check that pushes them to 5, and then they get like usually you get like one extra check that actually checks them, and then everything else would whiff with Mugen Lord. So yeah, because of that, I think I'll move Shiranui down because the Shiranui is just you look at a face value, they're just objectively worse than these two decks. So yeah, so that's it for the lower end of tier 1. Don't get me wrong, again, these decks are still very strong because they are in tier 1 for a reason, in my opinion. Still very strong decks, but I think these two decks here just kind of outshadow these decks a little bit. So well, first we'll go over Hari, just because Hari is one of the older decks. I think not a whole lot to say. Global has this deck as well, so you Global players should know how strong this deck actually is as well. But yeah, Hari is a very strong deck. Go first, go second. They will still rail your face in with big scaling with the Hari stride. Reset a bunch of columns, very big. If you survive the first stride, you're basically guaranteed dead on second stride unless you like heal down 3. Even then, you still might die. So yeah, Hari, very strong deck. It is just the best go face deck in my opinion. So yeah, Hari in top of tier 1, and finally the new addition is the Thabas or Alexandros, because Alexandros realistically is the entire deck, but Thabas technically, because Thabas is still the main ride of the deck. Thabas is just another flavor of Hari, except instead of clearing their board to deal with the control decks, you give resist to your entire board to deal with the control decks. A little less effective because you see here the quote-unquote control decks, Shiranui will punch into your stuff, and Overlord will still kill stuff with resist, but regardless. Thabas, or rather Alexandros, is a very strong card. Alexandros is just another Hari. On second stride, as long as you flip something on your first stride, whatever you're restanding is plus 15k power, and that makes your stuff really big and easily hits over any defensive. So yeah, not a whole lot to say. Thabas is just another flavor of Hari in my opinion, just another flavor of CB1 Gober. Make your rears really big, basically reset 2 columns, and yeah, just very strong. I think Thabas is actually a lot easier to play too, in my opinion, if you care about that, because the lines are much simpler than what Hari is doing. Hari still needs to at least know their lines to some degree. Thabas is just rear van, and then resend your rears, and then keep going. So yeah. So that's it for this month's tier list. Tell me guys what you think about down below in the comments. Like and subscribe, all the good stuff, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace out.